We're live from
Oh,
the
right.
Inferno. I mean, it could be the Inferno. I mean, there's heat radiating off the wall behind me. I'm not really sure whether that heat is, coming from the sun that was pounding down on it this morning, or whether it's coming from the joy of starting my week off with my good friend Corey Cottrell.
What's up, honey bunches of oats?
So yeah, how are things? It's interesting. We're sitting here looking at the state of the world, immersed in the middle of what could potentially become the bear, or is the bear.
I mean,
And
it's the bear. Unless you're in mining network, it's the bear.
and it's interesting to see. I don't like to harp on this too much, but things that are happening in the world are. It's Monday morning and chill, but I'm gonna start it off with a little bit of a serious conversation, and this is a little bit like a reflective on where we kind of started when we were doing shows, 7 days a week back when we, got to that point. And we came out of COVID times, and everybody was unsure about what was happening in COVID, and everyone was kind of freaked out, and everyone was locked in their houses, and they didn't trust anyone, and that's how crypto got a big boost. Not everyone, like 1% of the world, right? Mm-hmm. And we're in this place now where like we're starting to notice the adverse effects of that catching up to the real world, right? We're seeing now what happens when you print money to the price of bread, right? Like we're seeing what happens when we have these crazy wars that cause uncertainty over the world for reasons that most of us probably can't even comprehend, even on the other side of the world, right? Yeah. And so I want to ask you, Corey, because I had a conversation with another good friend of ours today, and I want to ask you, what do you think? Because it kind of seems like we condition ourselves to go into these cycles that are like, 3 or 4 years. And so we're in the middle of the bear, where a lot of people are looking at like, how do we create the best situation that we possibly can over the next 2 years. Yeah. But I'm going to say like, that's like the worst case scenario for me. I think that there's a chance that, because of world conditions, we could maybe snap out of this earlier than a lot of us are suspecting. And I really want to figure out a way to take the most advantage of this kind of downtime to set ourselves up like as quickly as possible for what's coming next. Right. What's your take on it?
Yeah. So my take right now, having gone through a full winter and just seen how quiet it gets and how long it takes, people aren't prepared for that yet. If that happens, right? And only the serious people will be left. And that's actually like right now, like that's almost true right now, right? And I mean, I think NFTs put a whole wrinkle on this that Bitcoin has never seen before. Right. So that's number one. The NFT market during the last bear market, the last sort of third, I guess, the last bear market, NFTs were like having what seemed like a cycle every 90 days. Right. And we see far more real economic activity in crypto now than we ever saw in that last cycle. Right. It was all speculative before. Right. You're buying tokens to get onto platforms that are magically going to produce this stuff that's going to have real world benefit, blah, 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 blah. NFTs are that real world benefit, right? At scale. So I think there will be more. I mean, certainly like we're already planning for more activity during the worst possible case scenario crypto winter than anything that I saw going on in the last cycle, right? And that's not to say that I saw everything. Of course I didn't, but you know what I mean? Like there's that possibility. So my personal take is we plan for the worst. And I mean, for anybody that didn't notice, like go take a look at snapshot.org. Like we're rigging the uplift for that worst case scenario, right? Like the last couple sales were, really slow, frankly. Right. And so we're taking massive action. All of the paid positions in Ethereum and Wax that we had going on that were already quite small compared to the work that was getting done, have been frozen, right? So everybody who's coming in and working on this really is doing it out of the passion for it, and basically planning a long-term commitment to doing what we can when we can, while we're figuring out how to put bread on our tables throughout this crypto winter, personally. So we're rigging things for the worst case scenario. And it might be like that, right? Where it's like 18 months where it's really, really slow and then things start to tick back up. But we will be positioned, 850 days from now when Bitcoin / the rest of the market, if it goes this way, could be potentially peaking again. We'll be ready for that. And we'll already be in a state of pretty awesome momentum long before that, right? So that's like most of the actions that I'm taking now, even personally, are designed around this taking 3 years. Here's where we might be over planning for that. And we need to be planning for some near term things. And I think we're okay doing that as well. The Ethereum merge might make Bitcoin irrelevant, right? That's hard for people to sort of grok, but it's possible, right? Like we've been in this cycle because Bitcoin has been the benchmark by which all other things are priced. So, as the price of Bitcoin goes, so goes the rest of the market, because it's all connected, right? Because everything is paired with Bitcoin. If Ethereum takes over and we see, a 5x or even a 2x amount of development going on that platform, which is possible, right? Ethereum's already paired with everything else. And so, as Ethereum price goes sometimes too, so goes the rest of the market. And we could see some real differences there. Like that cycle, we might be more on a traditional tech cycle than, a 4-year Bitcoin halving cycle, right? So that's entirely possible. We can't plan for that. It's never happened before, but it's possible. And then the other thing
it's interesting that you bring that up, because I've been pondering this recently myself as well. Not to cut you off, but just kind of like, we always talk about how Bitcoin and crypto don't really reflect the reality of traditional markets, but they kind of follow it. And we're always talking about the separation of like the two, right? Like, when does Bitcoin like go out on its own? When does crypto go out on its own? Yep. What I could actually potentially see happening in the crypto industry is for, Bitcoin to segregate itself from the rest of the market more quickly than the whole industry segregates itself from traditional stocks, where you have this Bitcoin cycle that keeps that keeps going, but it just keeps going because of the network effect. And really, all of the development and all of the things are happening on these other chains, right? It doesn't really like carve out anything different from Bitcoin. It's like, you've got the gold in Fort Knox. You're never going to use it. You're using fiat money, but the gold still has value. And I can actually kind of see maybe this separation of Bitcoin and the rest of the market happening on a network effect level, but not necessarily on a financial level. Does that make sense? Kind of what I'm trying to say.
It does, and it's possible. And I think like the thing for anyone that is sort of wondering what the hell we're talking about, there has been and I think, Jimmy, you and I were both the same on this. Like, we expected there to be a reverse correlation between the stock market and Bitcoin, right? Mm-hmm. Bitcoin crashes, stock market crashes, and everybody, runs to Bitcoin to, act as a hedge, right? And the more institutional exposure we have seen, where giant banks now have these, ETFs, electronically traded funds, et cetera, like ways to get Bitcoin or get exposure to Bitcoin price, what we've seen is the exact opposite, right? We've been seeing it as a speculative asset class, which, if you look at the annual lows for Bitcoin, is just not crazy at all. Like, the price of Bitcoin compared to 6 months ago and now just so doesn't matter, right? Unless you bought it at the top and you want to make money in 3 months, right? If that's your game, you're in the wrong game, right? It's not how any of this works. But if you buy the top and you look at it in a 4-year and 8-year cycle, you're good. Like, the probability that you're good is really high, right? So we've seen an intense 1-to-1 correlation between a positive correlation between the stock market going up and down and Bitcoin going up and down. And I think it's because, it's kind of rational that it's because of all of this institutional exposure, right? You have all these big banks, when they're risk on, when they're buying stuff, right? They're going to be buying all sorts of speculative class stuff. When they have to contract, when they start pulling back, they're going to be selling their speculative asset classes, right? And they've been doing that. So it'll be awesome if and when we see that correlation reverse, because I think it should, right? Inflation suggests that it should, but it hasn't happened yet, right? So like the one thing we know is that that's not real yet. It's just in our heads. It's a good story, makes sense, but it isn't real, right? So I think that's like kind of, Jimmy, going to what I was going to say too, is that like you and I have been through like a full crypto winter, and we've talked to other people that have as well, right? And more than us even. And so for us, like it stands to reason that this is going to happen again, right? But it's only happened 4 times. So, right? So it might not happen again the way that it did before, right? And so like that, to me, I'm fully in plan for the worst case scenario, because my top priority right now is that the uplift needs to survive. Because if we survive, we will do well. Maybe it's 6 months from now, maybe it's 3 years from now, doesn't matter, right? But if we're dead, if we have to turn the servers off forever, then it's all moot, right? So rule number 1, even if we're only going an inch a day, we keep everything moving forward. And then if something amazing happens in a week or 2 weeks or 90 days or 6 months, awesome, right? We're prepared to deal with that as well, but we're not digging ourselves a hole when there's a significant probability that we're going to be moving really slowly for 18 months.
Yeah, and I think like we've got some really interesting things planned for the next couple of weeks that we'll probably be relaying to the community. But if we look at how much of a shit storm everything is in the industry, in the market, in the world, what's interesting to me is we've actually never had more active events in the uplift than we do right now.
Yeah, right? Like that, like, yeah, that couldn't be more true. Like watching that happen, like the events committee is rocking and rolling. Marketing has been doing good. Like I get people in other projects messaging me about our, with Sam and the rest of the marketing committee, and you, frankly, are doing on social media or whatever. Like we're very visible, which is awesome, right? Like that. This is the thing. Like I was talking to Michelle about this because Jimmy knows this. I am not immune to frustration and and worry. I definitely have sleepless nights around all this stuff and kind of where I'm at personally and stuff like that. And Michelle actually sat me down, just like, anyway, I know you and I have talked about this already, but like, you imagine starting the last crypto winter with what you have put together now. Never mind the investments or whatever, because like, quite frankly, I'm probably going to zero on all this just by having to pay taxes from last year. Yay! But I mean, the team that we have, the community that we have around the uplift, that just like, we're just won't quit. Like the idea and the passion around the idea is so intense that we're just going to keep moving forward, and we're going to find a way to keep moving forward and make things more interesting and go multi-platform and finish off going, multi-blockchain when that starts to turn around or whatever, right? Like we can keep moving, we can keep doing things. And by the time the next, peak rolls around, Uplift DAO token's $1, and everyone's doing good. If you want to talk about pure speculation, P.S. This is not financial advice. Bloody fucking blah blah blah. It's rampant, ridiculous, irresponsible speculation. No one in their right mind, wink, would ever think, wink, that Uplift DAO token would be $1. Wink. Sorry, I have a tick.
So I did a show last week with Sean, our friends over at MetaCollect, and we were chatting about Terra and UST and Terra Classic, and like the price of Terra Classic kind of went insane over the last like 3 weeks. The worst possible like coin could ever have a jump.
So fun.
Speaking of speculation, what's happening? And it's funny, Sean's like, yeah, we like sold it all, like we got rid of it all. And
like,
and
that's the only responsible play, right?
But he said we've been in this industry long enough that we didn't get rid of it all. We kept a little bit, because why would you not? Right.
Right. It just
It's
on
like,
the
what happens
wink,
when
wink,
this goes
nudge, nudge.
back- what happens when this goes back to the dollar? It's got that potential, right? And I think
Yeah.
this is what's going to be interesting, I think, when we get to the next bull market. The two things that you kind of pointed out: NFTs, which in general, I'm sorry, I'm going to piss a lot of people off, but we've seen this over the course of the last 2 months, which are generally unsustainable. NFTs are unsustainable. They're great, but if the art community is not buying into them, right?
When you say, define what you say when you say
wait,
unsustainable, like dig into that a little bit.
Right. If the art community is not buying them and they have no ulterior use case other than just a picture on the blockchain, then they're not going to make you millions faster than finding a random piece of street art and that artist going famous, right? It's the same.
Okay.
It's the
one
same
argument I would make.
Okay, go ahead.
Right. There was so much speculative interest that it fueled the speculative interest.
Right.
Right. Like NFTs this last season were the ICOs of this cycle. Right. And it was the same kind of thing. Right. It just happened to have a JPEG on it. Great. Right. But like the communities around it operated exactly the same way the ICOs did. The pump and dumps happened exactly the way the ICOs did. People made money exactly the way they did with the ICOs, but there's always the people left holding the bag. Right. And that's, anytime you get into these super hype cycles, that's always the case. Right. And so the trick is to make sure you're not the one holding the bag. That's what they did. And that's not sustainable. Right. Like that's why we see these crashes. And then we're going to find out, during the NFT winter or fall or whatever it is, we're going to find out what's real. Right. Which I think has been the biggest blessing about these crypto cycles, is that you have rampant speculative interest, which fuels a lot of fire and attention, whatever. All these things are good, right? But then, when the hype goes away, what do you have left? And what sticks, right? And, seeing that kind of cycle in, over time, I think is allowing the whole industry to iterate and, come up with cooler and cooler things. And what sticks is going to last.
Yeah, and so like kind of where I was headed with that too is like pay attention. Like we've got some pretty impressive friends that are doing some amazing things, right? Like look at the Meta Art Club, for example, right? They're a group of people who are trying to onboard real world artists into crypto, and they're doing it, in tandem with organizations like Vogue. Right. And doing like metaversal art shows. Like these projects, I think, are the ones that are going to make the difference. Right. These are going to be, I'm going to make people shudder, but these are going to be the Ethereums. Right. These are going to be, say what you want about some of the crappiest blockchain projects that are out there, but they're still around. They're still trying to make like things happen where they're ones that weren't. Right. Another one I like is another example, I think, is the somebody's excited. Anyway, right. MetaCollect is another good one, right? Like they're introducing their token in the middle of the bear, which is crazy. Why would you ever introduce a token in the middle of the bear? That doesn't make sense. That's not where you're going to cash in on the hype. That's not where you're going to make your millions. And why are they doing it? They're doing it because they've got a really good use case for their token that, goes in and helps back all of the things that they built across multiple blockchains. And I think that's kind of what we, in a way, did with the Uplift, right? Like we're basically introducing a new governance token at one of the most pivotal times in the market, which allows us as a community and the members who are part of the Uplift and want to see it succeed to have a voice in how it's being made, right? And to help construct how these NFTs could potentially have more use cases than the ones that have already been baked and designed into them. And that's what I mean. That's a lot different than somebody just throwing out the same picture across 5 different blockchains and getting a bunch of money because all the power to it if you can do that. But where do we've had this conversation, internally too. Where do we get to the point where we actually have value without having to sell more shit? Those are the projects that are going to succeed in the long-term crypto market, right? Like if you've got a company who's empowering artists, who's creating NFTs, who's onboarding real world artists, who's putting together meta like shows in the metaverse, who is able to get sponsorships, those are the real world based companies that are going to do well. Not, oh, I need to sell more art because I don't have any money, right? Like it's
or even land, right? I mean, like, and again, like I think selling more land on new blockchains, or when there's more demand, which clearly there hasn't been, right? Which is why we need to go back to the drawing board on that, and then we'll increase the Discord, blah blah blah. We got a plan for that, right? What I'm really excited about, especially with Mindtest, is getting to the point where the amount of secondary market stuff for land and for everything else that we're going to be able to, because we can attach everything now with Mindtest, right? All the things we couldn't do with the Minecraft end user license agreement, like screw all that, right? Like we're going to get real weird, real fast, and make like I think one of the best kind of wax games, right? Wax NFT games, on this, the blockchain that's kind of our mothership blockchain. But then also be attached to an actual game and an actual metaverse, which almost no one is doing at all, right? So I think we got an amazing opportunity. So a lot of economic activity, but where like you're growing sheep and cultivating this, that, and the next thing or whatever, and you're selling those things as NFTs, and that's creating a whole bunch of economic activity. And the Uplift is making its money on the secondary market percentage, right? Which basically to me is really, really exciting, because that means like we're basically just putting a thimble in the river of economic activity and keeping the lights on that way, right? Like getting to that point is something I've been dreaming about for a long time, right? And we're not close to it right now. But I think over this winter, well, frankly, like I'm going to keep hammering away on it until we're there. So it's fucking inevitable because, I'm not a genius, but I am relentless. And so is the rest of the team, except that we actually have geniuses on the team and they also are relentless. So, I mean, we're going to get there. It's just a matter of, I just don't know how long it's going to take.
Two asides, if we ever like just, take all of the work away from Dennis and be like, hey, just go spend the week writing proposals, you guys are going to be blown away by the insane ideas.
Dude,
right? Like,
dude. And seriously, like, so all the paid positions have gone away. Like we're trying to find, like, I'm personally trying to find, work for even part-time, whatever, like for people like Sam, people like Dennis or whatever. Right. P.S. If you need website design work, Dennis has built our entire website and he's fucking amazing and you should hire him. But yeah, I mean, like, I think he should start his own game,
right?
That he owns, right, in connection to the Uplift,
right?
Right. Even just to show other people, like, you can do this,
right?
Right. We're there's ways to do it that don't require any Uplift permission or dev work or anything, right? There's a lot of things that you can do around that stuff. And Dennis is like seriously, he doesn't, and you guys have seen it if you're in the Discord or whatever, he doesn't like me, like come in and like have a half-cocked idea, which I do all the time. Sorry. Dennis will come in with a thesis.
Yeah.
And it'll be 1,000 words minimum, and it'll make a ton of sense. And you'll need 2 coffees before reading it.
Yeah.
Period. Because it just, and he does it all the time. Like he's like, I think, I would love to be part of something where he got to, we got to MVP something for him specifically. That's just his idea. That's just like an NFT game or something. And connect it to the Uplift if we can. But just have that out there and be the Dennis flagship, just because, I mean, he's done so many things in this industry, not even just for us, mostly for us though, frankly, in my completely humble opinion. But yeah, it'll be amazing to see, what he accomplishes over the next little bit.
Well, and as a secondary note to that as well, right? Like anyone who's holding lands or who's partaking in enter.theuplift.world is basically going to be able to collect uplifting, right? And that's a really solid use case that people are going to get for being part of the ecosystem, for engaging with the ecosystem, for playing, for developing, for hosting, or coming to events. There's all of these ways that people can get upliftium. That's something that a lot of projects who I kind of feel are going to die or hibernate in the bear aren't doing, right? Watch, this is what kind of saddens me, because you're going to see a lot of projects that grind through. You're going to see a lot of projects that just flat out disappear. And you're going to see a lot of projects that when the bull happens again, it's like, oh, hey, money, we're back again. Give us more, right? And that's really saddening for me, for someone who actually believes in the industry, right? And you see this. You see a lot of, without naming names quite yet, you see a lot of projects that just kind of disappear and they reappear when the time is right to be able to, you know, take people's money for whatever the trend might happen to be, right?
Yep.
Instead of writing the trend or making the trend or doing that, they just kind of show up and they're like, yeah, we're going to sell you some shit and you should buy it. And like you said, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next bull market, because a couple of these trends were only forged in the last bull market, right? We didn't have the NFT trend previous to this last cycle that we just went through. This was all new. All of the shit that Nifty Blocks pioneered, all new. All of the stuff that like Atomic Hub built was built like leading up to that, right? All of the things that went out on OpenSea with, you know, Other Side and all of these other metaverses, this was all new, right? Now, I'm expecting a few of them to be around when we come through the bear, but I'm also expecting way more to die and for us to never hear from them again. And my wallet to be full of, you know, hockey cards who I've never heard of because it's some guy in a helmet that looks like all the other helmet heads, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's gonna be like that. But we should do some gratitudes. I like ranting with you. We should do, maybe that's one of our new series in the bear, rants with Corey and Jimmy. I like it.
I like it. I mean, anytime we get you to rant, it's good. Well, and you know, I think I'm gonna focus on, because I know there's a lot of projects that are gonna go away, and you know, there's a lot of people that you know, are online that are feeding into the negativity, right? It's a very easy to get, you know, a easy way to get attention right now, because there's that underlying sense of loss. Again, it's temporary, but still, right? Like that, you know, the, oh my God, my whole account is worth X. Like, yeah, I've been through this before. It doesn't matter. And like, the longer you stick it out, the better, right? Like, we've done it, so we know. It doesn't make it easy, right? Like, the first few months of my first bear market, I was like, oh, the world is over. Like that. Like, so I get it, right? But I think on this show, we're gonna focus on the people that are building stuff in this market, out of this market, tangentially, wherever it is. You know, because that's, I mean, it's who we are. You guys all know that. I mean, we would suck at doing anything else anyway. But I think it's just gonna be more interesting, especially more interesting over time, right? So if you spot any builders, if you spot any people that are still doing amazing things and that keep going no matter what, we're gonna have them on the show.
Well, and there's something else that we're gonna do in this bear market. Corey and I were talking about this the other day off camera. So I'll throw this out there, because one thing that we didn't really do during the last bear market when we kind of spun this channel out, what we did do is we focused on a lot of people who were building a lot of cool shit. But I think one of the things that we're going to try to dedicate some bandwidth and some time to this bear cycle is we're going to try to focus on people that could build really cool shit. There's a lot of people out there, traditional industries, traditional businesses, that don't really know that much about blockchain and crypto, that kind of want to find a way to figure out how to plug into it. And Corey and I were chatting and we're like, what if we have these people on the show? What if we bring them on here? What if we talk to them about why it would be good for them to bring their business into the blockchain industry? So if any of you are out there and you're listening and you happen to be one of those people, or you know people who are a little bit unsure about how they could potentially plug their, you know, blockchain, their business into the blockchain, I think that's something that we're kind of interested in covering too, right? Like there's a lot of projects that, you know, might be coming through incubators and things like that that could potentially, you know, rally around the next year's time to sit back and build and release some really amazing things. And like a perfect example, I think the best worst example of all time about how shitty and bad things could get is go back last week and watch the last couple weeks and watch the interviews that we did with Eve LaRose and the one that Corey did with Daniel Keys, right? Like, and EOS, the state of that whole system, the crap show that was, you know, how Corey and I essentially met.
Talk about a community that just refused to quit. And they're you know they're realizing the dream that brought so many of them to that ecosystem. And it's inspiring, man. Like I realized when I was talking to Daniel Keys like early on, you know, like the fact that, you know, they were trying to overcome, you know, starting with some corporate overlords that, you know, where all the funds kind of went and then just sort of disappeared into the ether. And, you know, there was this core community that just refused to let go and wanted to realize the dream. And I'm like, wait a minute, are we talking about the Uplift right now? Right? Like, you know, it was pretty similar, frankly. And to see it working so well over there after a year of the ENF, the EOS Network Foundation, and Pomelo, and like what they're doing, it really is a model for the rest of us, and we're quite, you know, securely on that path with the DAO, in a way that, like, I just get excited about it, man. Like it's tough now, it is, and there are more tough times ahead, but like what we got is pretty good. It's right, like you know, we're, you know, freaking WAGMI. Everyone else is like crying and going to bed. And again, not everyone else. And we want to hang out with anybody else who's building through this. Anyway, speaking of tough times, we're downgrading our servers to not AWS because we can't afford AWS. There's going to be some news. So we're going down to some bare metal servers, and we're doing the configuration on that now. So some of the people in the Uplift you might have experienced some, you know, interruption. I think the servers went down for a day while Norman, our Wiz, was getting them reconfigured. So I just got booted out of Genesis, and I'm in Old World, and I kind of don't mind. So I'm in the church right now.
Nice.
The OG of OGs, and so, you know, let's put up some. Oh shit, sunrise. Nice timing. Shit. Oh, I did share it. Good. Yeah, so I'm going to destroy that portal. It is the worst placed portal in the history of the Uplift. Get in the way of my effing sunrise.
I mean, it might be the most iconic place to put a portal.
It's terrible. It's terrible. Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, this is where it started. You know, before it was the Uplift, you know, when we were just kind of messing around with the idea of podcasting inside of a Minecraft server, the pandemic started. You know, we started putting up, you know, gratitudes. We would gather here, you know, on Sundays to have a moment of silence, watching the sunrise right here in this place together. Everyone all across, you know, North America. I think it was the world. We had a bunch of people from everywhere. You know, my friends and family, and, you know, extended friends and family, while we were all locked in our houses. And all the gratitudes that all of us put up are all there still. There's something to that I have yet to see anything even remotely as powerful in any other metaverse. Which is one of the reasons why, no matter what, working for free, doing whatever it takes, spending too much money, the Uplift is just not allowed to go away. Anyway, let's put some gratitudes up in this holy of holy places there, Home Slice.
I'm grateful that Corey Cottrell is still Corey Cottrell.
Hardly be anything else. Thank you.
And this might be actually my first gratitude in the old original cathedral.
I was gonna ask you that. That's crazy.
Right. Right. I'm pretty sure. I've never done one here before. We did one at the, the new cathedral in Old World, and of course Uplifters Tower, but I don't think I've actually put one up ever here, which is quite interesting. So let's throw that out there.
I'm really grateful for you, Jimmy, and MM and Chill. Monday morning and Chill. This is fun. Yeah. I miss our chats. We don't have it. So what, you want to put another one on?
No, I'm okay. I mean, I could, but I'm kind of
do another one. Right here.
Throw me on the spot. You think I'd be prepared? You think
Right.
I'd have a list of like 10?
Let me do another one. I'm grateful for Babs. That's my wife's nickname. The more challenging things get for me, the more supportive she gets. And I've seen the opposite, right? Like I've lived through the opposite, and it's life-changing. What happens when you have a spouse or a partner that just backs you up, even when you want to try absolutely crazy shit. It's the only reason we're here. Anyway, what else?
I can second that. My missus is pretty similar, so that's always fun. But yeah, my second one, I got a second one. I'm grateful for the time to reset my mind, body, and soul. I think most people, we're a pretty small, intimate crowd. But if you happen to be watching this back in like 3 or 4 years, and just be like, where did Jimmy come from? What was he doing before we knew about him? It's been a pretty big transitional moment for me to pick up and let's out of the blockchain industry. Let's look at what's happening in the state of the business world, right? Like I picked up and I moved, across an ocean, across a continent. And I thought, hey, I'm going to maybe apply for some jobs or do some different things that I haven't been doing. And I realized just how much of a bubble I lived in Japan, right? Like I could just walk into any place and be like, hey, you're looking for somebody, hire me. And they would hire me. And now people actually want to know if I'm qualified or not, which is pretty scary. Right? But it's fun, living as a foreigner in another country. If you have the opportunity, is sometimes like building a company in the blockchain industry, right? When things are good, it's great, and you can just go in there and walk around and do whatever you want. But it's been a bit of a interesting transition living in the country, coming from one of the biggest cities in the world, living in like literally living in the middle of nowhere. It's been really nice to be able to sit and watch flames burn in a fire pit and just ponder about where we're going, what we're doing next. Like the amount of time that I've spent thinking about the uplift, thinking about the metaverse, thinking about what direction would be good to take things like the blog, to try to come to a point where we can do things with this show that we haven't done before. Like it takes a while sometimes to recode your brain. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah.
and we need that time sometimes. So it's been interesting for me anyway.
That's interesting. Hey Rob, thanks, man. I got you up on the board in the OG of OGs. This is again where the whole thing started.
And Rob is pretty, he's pretty solid. If you haven't checked out any of his builds, I think we've got a couple posts up. He's done some really cool stuff, and I know you're a very active member of the community. So thanks for always being out there in the Discord and talking in the DAO. I know you're quite vocal in the DAO proposal channel as well, the pre-DAO proposal channel, and this is kind of what we need at this point, in my humble opinion. But I like the fact that people are weighing in on things. I like the fact that people are coming and saying, no, I don't know if this is a good idea, or I'd like to change this, or I think that this is better. And I think that's where we're going to make a name for ourselves, not a metaverse that was built by a few people. It's going to be the metaverse that was built by a community who cared when, you know, the funding wasn't there, right? When the bear market was here, when nobody cared about crypto, right? Like that's what I think we're going to see when we get to the next bull market, is people are going to be like getting pissy at us, Corey. They're going to come and they're just going to be like, they're going to get pissy at all of our communities, and they're going to whine, and they're going to complain, and they're going to be like, the only reason you like the Uplift is because you were an early investor. That's the only reason. The only reason you think the Uplift is good is because you were there in the beginning. You were an early investor. And my response to that will be like, no, not necessarily. They were an early investor with their time. They bought into the DAO in mind and soul, and they helped shape the foundation. That's not something that happens in the regular crypto world for the majority of projects, right? The community having a voice, the community having a say, being able to help, you know, vote on proposals or put up proposals. I mean, if you want 64 eggs, you have the ability to throw that proposal up on the DAO, even if nobody votes for it, right? Like there's so many voices, big and small, that people can throw out there. And Rob, shout out to you, because you've been really active, you know, through this whole, you know, last few months, and I really appreciate everything that you've given us to think about, and all of your insights on your experience here, you know.
Yep, what you said. Just throwing a couple picks up in the Discord.
So we've got, I think, a couple guests lined up this week and next week, which will be fun. A couple older friends of ours that are going to come on the show. I'm not going to announce it because I'm not 100% sure, but I'm also hoping, you know, to get a bunch of new faces. So again, likewise, if you want to come, I think this is maybe a really good opportunity to go back to one of the foundational things that Corey and I did in the last bear. So if you want to come and give us a walkthrough of your plot, either in Minecraft or even better in Minetest, get in touch with Corey and I, because we'd love to do, like, you know, metaversal tours, I think, on some of the things that are happening, being built by the community, right? The last event, Walkabout with Sam, they did in Minetest, like that was pretty cool, right? Like but yeah, definitely come and hang out and show us your builds in the metaverse if you're interested. We'd love to have that.
Indeed.
That, yeah, I mean, I think if you haven't voted, go vote, because like Corey said, in the proposal itself, things might be a little bit slower, but like, we're all here. We're all going to be trucking away and doing what we do. And it might, you know, it might be a little bit slower than normal, but we're not here so we can make the big bucks. We're here so that we can build something cool and continue to do that, right? And I think the nicest thing for me about the DAO is that we've opened the door to a lot of other people who have come in and worked their tails off. I mean, some of our new committee chairs, you know, they're kind of new additions to thoughts and feelings that are happening around the Uplift. I mean, old community members, but like new to the roles that they've stepped in, which is pretty impressive. So if you ever want to be part of those committees, or you know, do that, like, feel again free to reach out to any of us in the Discord, because I think we're always looking for like-minded individuals to collaborate with and do things like that. Like I like, honestly, if you people out there want to write shit, tell me and I will publish everything that you write, because like there's some amazing things happening. So but yeah, what do you got? What's left on the morning chill Corey Blitz for this beautiful 12th of September there, Corey?
Yeah, I'm really glad that Chan is talking about coming on this week, because I don't think I can announce what I would really like to announce until she gives me the go ahead, and I'm kind of hoping she just goes like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. What's up, motherfuckers? She would probably never say it like that. For those of you that don't know, Chan is the head of the New Moon Accelerator, introduced to us through Jimmy. One of the coolest, badass human beings I've ever met in my entire life. Just epic. Like, I want to be like Chan when I grow up, for real. Anyway, so that stuff is really huge, and I think, you know, part of the reason why I can be bullish, even though, like, you know, we basically just ended all paid positions. Like, that's honestly was fucking heartbreaking. Like, I'm for myself putting as good of a face on it as I possibly can, but it was hard. Like, none of this is fun. But at the end of the day, like, what do you do? Like, you know, you're climbing a mountain, you fall down, you want to cry about it, or you get up. And like, so I did both. I cried about it for a minute, and then I got up. But there's things coming that really are like, holy shit. And we've sort of hinted at it, right? In the past, but we weren't allowed to like out and out announce it. And I think that's coming soon. So that's fun. You know, other stuff going on this week. Yeah, that you know, getting you're just taking a look at that, you'll be able to see that and vote on it to, you know, affirm on it if you want. I think the sooner we put that stuff in our rear view mirror, the sooner we can start building back up, which is, you know, what gets me out of bed in the morning. The mind test thing, you know, is coming along fast. You had some comments in the chat. You know, the you know. Somebody was very, very mad that the blends that we didn't announce that they require shards to blend when they're listed in the blend. I mean, that, you know, okay. And we can't melt them back yet, right? So like, you can't take 10 million back into the game yet. And you can't reverse blend yet. You can't break them up back into the other things, which is something that we could probably do. I think even in the near term. We have been dealing with some existential fucking threats to the Uplift survival. And so I am deeply not sorry that we have been focused on that. But it is going to mean that a lot of other things are going to be slower. This is a fact of life. Everybody hanging out, you know, doing this now is effectively doing it as a freaking volunteer. It's going to happen when it happens. And trying to pressure anyone on our team to do things faster will probably set my hair on fire. It's not fair to them, right? And I get everybody wants to have things fast, and like, you know, there's this, you know, expectation that, you know, everybody does things like instantaneously all the time or whatever. And if you're dealing with $1 billion corporation, yeah, you should absolutely expect that from them. You're dealing with a bunch of people that, you know, are trying to figure out how to keep the server lights on. Right. And we will. And we're going to prioritize what needs prioritizing. That said, you can bring these things to our attention. And if you do it in a nice way, we will react in a nice way. Right. Because you're absolutely right. Like, it would be really cool if we did melting that. It'd be really cool if we, you know, got that into the schedule. And even like, I'd like us to get to the point very quickly where, you know, we could at least let people know, hey, like, we're doing this, and this. Right. And so we think that we might be able to put that into the schedule, you know, a week from now or 2 weeks from now, right? Because like, I do get that we want to bake in as much certainty as we possibly can. Shout out to Dan from Immersis, who knows about all these challenges as much as anyone. Anyway, so all that stuff, the mind test stuff, definitely get in there and test it. You can now. I would check out the mind test channel in our Discord if you have any questions about that or want directions on how to get in there. I think that's actually in the pinned comments in the mind test channel in our Discord. Lots of stuff going on there. The DAO channel, the DAO discussion channel, is just on fire with a bunch of different theories of the case about how we can make the transition over there. So I think, you know, getting I mean, just even watching that conversation has been super interesting. Or you could just like go to the mind test quick start guide that Jimmy wrote, because he's a god.
Well, Jimmy kind of put it up there. We had some amazing committee members that wrote it, but yeah, I mean, it's super easy follow through with some infographics and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely go check that out. And Dan, like, yeah, the shout out to Dan from Mercy's. Come join us in the next week or two. Like, I'd love to sit down. I had the pleasure of talking to Dan, you know, for the last Pomelo pitch deck series that I did, and I think it would be super fun to hash out with Dan what the metaverse looks like in this little lull that we're having, Corey. I think it would be a lot of fun. So if you have the bandwidth, Dan, come talk to us. You know, what's going to be the trend going forward when we breach out into the, you know, next top cycle of metaverses? What are people going to notice? What are people going to do? I mean, it'd be pretty interesting to, yeah, I'm not going to say that because I don't want that to happen. Never mind. I was going to say it'd be pretty interesting if metaverses were the next hype cycle. But I'd rather.
I mean, they've been, right? I mean, that, like, the, you know, metaverse is really intense right now, right? And, like, you know, what we're going to be announcing in the next little bit, which is like a massive partnership.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be happening, I don't think, unless you know, there was a lot of chatter around metaverse. And seriously, like, you know, you want to go to the top 5 metaverses or what have you, like that, you know, that you could do that, but like I always want to look for the scrappy startup that is way undervalued,
right?
And we're that,
yeah,
right? Like, asininely, idiotically undervalued. That's a great spot to be. It's a great spot to be.
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting too, right? Like, because if you don't know what immersives is, they're another, you know, full blown, built on, like, from the ground on up, you know, metaverse. And you know, Dan says don't have a DAO to help with decisions. I have to imagine it helps during times like these, but it seems so far from something I can do. And I mean, I can't. It's funny now that we've transitioned into this, Corey. I can't really imagine what or where we would be, what we would be doing, or where we would be without the DAO right now, right? Like, it's hard for me to imagine,
right? How quickly it went from like, oh, we're just doing this thing, to like the DAO just became part of who we are really quickly. And Dan, you totally could.
Yeah.
Like, you absolutely could. And if you want to have a call on that would be really fun. And I've said this a bunch of times on this show, but I'm going to say it again. I sincerely thought, after doing all the community management through our hard times, right, through some really, really challenging times, it was hard, right? Like, doing community management was fun, and like, it was all like that pre-speculative phase or whatever, and like, oh man, what are they going to do? Yada, yada. Like, that shit's fun, right? And honestly, the fact that everyone has fun doing that is why projects get left in the dust, because you keep going to the next shiny thing. Just saying, right? That's a very, very common thing. Nobody wants to own that as an NFT marketplace, but I mean, this is what happens, right? It's why some game companies keep making new things. It's because you keep buying the new things. Anyway, not the point. I thought, because of how challenging that was, that running the DAO would be like herding drunk cats. I seriously thought that it would be very challenging and really annoying and hard to do. And I was fucking wrong. Like, just so unbelievably wrong. It allows for everybody with different opinions to voice those opinions, and honestly train me, because I mean, you guys, some of you guys who were around, you guys saw me. I didn't react very well all the time to people coming at us guns blazing. Jimmy's laughing because, like, I was actually very bad. I take it personally, and I know that's wrong. It's not the best way to deal with this stuff, but you know, I feel pretty passionately about it, and I did. You know, it's not the way. But now, when that stuff happens, I have, like, there's like these pressure release valves, right? So let's say, like, you know, Jimmy comes in, he goes, Corey, this idea is fucking stupid. You're an idiot, blah, blah, blah. You know what I get to say? Hey, Jimmy, what? Vote against it. Right? And that's it. Now, whatever. Have fun. Right? If you have a better idea, write it down. And this is the other thing I've learned. Like, people have lots of opinions and lots of ideas, and some of them are even good, right? The second that we go, hey, write a proposal up, 90% of them go away, right? But the ones that don't, holy shit. Like, the amount of creativity that gets baked into stuff. And again, I've said this a million times, but it bears repeating. It's now like a firm part of anytime we have an idea where there's any sort of creativity or what have you that needs to be done around that idea, if I have a proposal or whatever, I make it, I throw it out to the entire community in a Google Doc that anyone can edit, and it's just awesome. It really, really is. Like every single idea I've put out immediately gets better because people are looking at it and thinking at it from different perspectives or whatever, and then it has that much more impetus when we put it up to vote. Blah 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 blah. Speaking of which, I think towards the end of this month, Jimmy, I'm going to release my my next Upliftium hack, where, and again, I'm not going to release it fully baked because it's not. I'm going to release it as a proposal that everybody can go in. I think we should cap the Upliftium supply, which of course is not, right? And I'm very glad that we started it out this way. And I also think we should make it deflationary. And so I want to map out some ideas for that, which basically will map to some of the more successful elements of Bitcoin, and frankly, mining test that is crushing. Let's go. I'm learning a lot. I said mining test, mining network. I'm learning a lot from what they're doing, and they're seriously just doing high-speed Bitcoin tokenomics. It's genius. It's super smart. So I'm going to release that out to the public. Everybody can look at it and say if it's a good idea, bad idea. And I hope that it inspires at some point people to start having much better ideas than me, because you're allowed. Go write a proposal and have it, passed, and shepherd it and get it done. Right? Like this is where we're at. So yeah, Dan Immersis, I think it'd be great to tack on, and I think it could inject a good chunk of energy into what you're doing, and would love to chat about it, because I know you're going to stick it out, and I know you guys are going to succeed, and anything we can do to help, we're going to do.
If you can come on the show, that'd be great. Let's chat about it. Also, Corey, I think, we've got a couple guests lined up this week or next week, but I think one of the other things that maybe we should do, or you should do, and I'll be here holding your hand while you do it, is give us I want you to give us a review of Mining Network someday. Do they give us the full review about what they're doing? Like, come on here and talk about it. Talk about just that little synopsis in depth of what you did. I think this would be fun too. Like, I want to start.
I want people to understand what they're doing. It's a good idea. Yeah. I don't want to promote it, right? Because I've got a decent little position in it, but people take promotion as like full on crazy endorsements, and like if it goes down, then everyone wants to blame me. It could. I don't know. Right.
But even if we're not promoting it and we're talking about the interest of the tokenomics.
Right. Why is it working right now? And why do I think it's going to keep working? Right. And again, and I'll throw in caveats every 5 seconds, like, take personal responsibility for your shit, you dumb fuck. Right.
We'll put it right up on the screen. We'll set up a header
across the banner
for that purpose.
No, for real, no joking, not financial advice. But no, I think being able to analyze tokenomics like this, there's a lot that we as the Uplift community can learn from why it works, right? And bake some of that stuff into what we're doing. And now's the time to start iterating that stuff. And I think very rightly, Chris Tuttle Ramses, who's been a very extremely strong defender of Upliftium tokenomics and how we do that, and wanting to make sure that we balance it and not increase distribution, blah, 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 all that stuff, right? Has been slow to come on board with this stuff, the new ideas. And I think it's because once we do them, they're kind of non-reversible, right? So it's really committing us to a long-term vision that will constrain us. My argument to her, and this will eventually work, is that constraints have always made us smarter and do cooler things. Wink. But yeah, there's a lot going on. Anyway, I'm ranting about all that stuff. So yeah, those are the biggest things for me. The mind test thing. I don't know when we're going to get closer to release. I think we're still going back and forth on a lot of key elements about how we want to start. I definitely have an opinion, but mostly around wanting to make sure that we leave ourselves as much possible room for gamification and economics as we possibly can. Again, to get to that point where we've got, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of NFTs getting sold by you, the community, to each other for stuff, and so the Uplift DAO can sort of live off of the secondary market. Like, that's a dream. Like, that is just something that benefits everyone, right? Because there's a teeming marketplace that people can come in and mess around with and actually make some real money. And on the back end, it sort of keeps our lights on, and I think that opens us up to start taking more moonshots and doing a bunch of more interesting things or whatever. So the mind test thing, not sure the timeline yet, but there's a lot of really interesting conversation going on there. The conversation with Chan, whenever we get that booked, keep an eye out for that and make sure you're here for that, because at the very least, we're going to be dropping some hints. Even just the potential guest that she wants to bring on with her will be all the hint anyone will need, which is interesting.
I'm excited. Yeah, we'll be here, in and out. Again, it's the Bear, so it might be 9 a.m., it might be 1 a.m., it might be 4 o'clock in the afternoon, where Corey and we sit down and have a beer. I'll probably won't, but maybe I'll spin up a banner that goes across the screen that says, "We're here to talk about shit that we're totally not endorsing, because hey, we're in the middle of the next trend that's going to take over the world, and we're here on the ground level building shit." And I mean, the last time I built shit, it kind of went away for a while, and then now half of the world plays video games, so fuck it.